Today we are pretending as if I lost my entire board game collection and I had to rebuild it using only $200. Hello, welcome to Nelson All Over. My name is Nelson and I do board game content. Today we are taking a look at what I would need to do if I had to rebuild my entire board game collection and I only had $200 to do this. Now this has been one of the more fun videos I've had preparing for it because it's kind of interesting, right? Because you're looking at games that you love, but like Spirit Island is so expensive. Can I fit it in with $200? Spoiler alert, no, I can't. I was not able to fit Spirit Island in. But it leads you to like think about if you only had a small number of games, what you would do and how you would, round out a collection. Would you dive in and only do games that you absolutely love and keep it to like one engine building Euros, heavy Euros, and have like 3 or 4 of them? Or would you try and diversify and spread out and figure out, I want this game for this specific situation and this game for that situation? That's kind of the route I went into, and it led to some interesting ideas. I got all my prices from Miniature Market, so that's the price database that I'm pulling from, and I have a giant spreadsheet with a ton of numbers that I was moving everything in and out, trying to get everything under $200, and I finally did it. I'm pretty happy with it. The first thing I knew I needed to get, I absolutely had to get, was to get some meaty Euros in the list. I could not rebuild my board game collection without at least one good heavy Euro, and I was actually able to get 2 of them in there, and so I'm very, very happy with this. The first that I was able to buy took a huge chunk of my change at $50, so 25% of my entire money, and that's Brass Birmingham. Brass, if you're unfamiliar, it's a trading economic Euro game that has just so much depth and a lot of player interaction. The reason I settled on Brass, and the one that was kind of competing for this spot was Agricola, was because that Brass works so well at 2, 3, or 4 players, which Agricola does too. Honestly, it was a coin flip between these two. Agricola was $51. I could have fit that in there. I do have a little bit left over at the end, but Brass, I just love the replayability that Brass provides, and you're able to just dive in and learn so much about the game the more times you play it, and with a smaller collection where you only have 1 or 2 of these big meaty Euro games, you're going to be playing them with a significant amount of repeated plays. And so I thought Brass, if I had to settle on one of these, would work just so very well and allow me to kind of learn in and grow in the strategy, and it would just be so satisfying to be able to sit down and play Brass 20 to 30 times, because it's a game that you will grow, and every single time I play, I learn something, and I thought it'd be really cool to have that as one of the pinnacles of the collection, to be able to just learn so much about the game, and that's why I spent 25% of my money on it. It's kind of crazy, but also, Euros are expensive. Euros are very expensive. I was looking for like underwater cities, which actually like Miniature Market doesn't even have underwater cities, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there, so I didn't put that on there. Terraforming Mars was also kind of in the discussion here, and then Viticulture, but I didn't include Viticulture or Terraforming Mars because I feel like those really reached their peak level of gaming with the expansion, and I didn't want to buy expansions with the money that I was given. And so I was much more comfortable with buying Brass, which does not have an expansion as far as I am aware. And so it's a self-contained game that I would be very, very content with, where some of these others would maybe be about the same price, but I would have to buy like Prelude for Terraforming Mars or Tuscany for Viticulture, and that would just raise the price too high for me to be able to stomach that. And because I was able to do that, I was able to get a second Euro in there, and that's Power Grid, and this is Power Grid Recharged at $36, which actually is a huge deal, I think. I love Power Grid. I bought Power Grid, I traded Power Grid away because one of my buddies who lived next to me has Power Grid, and I was like, if I am ever playing Power Grid, he has it, and then he moved away to Colorado, and so now no Power Grid, so I traded back for Power Grid, so now I have Power Grid. But Power Grid is a game that works really well at like higher player counts. I don't necessarily think that it works super well at 2 or 3 players, where Brass does. And so Power Grid can work at the higher player counts. I think it goes up to 6. And so you're able to table a bigger Euro. And with $36, there's a lot of replayability with Power Grid. You get 2 different maps. And it's just a lot of like it's also a market game now that I'm thinking about it. I do like economic games, and so maybe I'm heavily influenced by that. But also seeing that price tag of $36 on Power Grid made it like I'm gonna find a spot for Power Grid. That way I can get 2 meaty euros into the game. That leaves me with $114, and I have a lot more ground to cover. And I wanted to get something with a lot of replayability, and also I wanted something that works well multiplayer as well as solo, and that's Marvel Champions. So Marvel Champions for $44 on Miniature Market is absolutely a steal. The core box comes with 5 different heroes, and each of those heroes can be paired with one of the 4 different aspects. And then there are 3 villains in there, so just right there, there's 60 games, 60 unique games. Then it comes with modular sets, and you can deck build, and so you're easily looking at 200 to 500 games in the core box without ever having to replay something. Actually, honestly, it's probably infinity games because of just the way that you can deck build, but that could get kind of old. $44 for that works super well. I play a lot of Marvel Champions solo, and it works very well there. With solo, it has gameplay in about 20 to 40 minutes solo, and also 2-player works spectacularly. And then you can play it up to 4-player. I don't know if I'd recommend it at 4-player. It's a very long game at that point. But Marvel Champions is a love of mine. It's on the shelf today, and it's just a game that I find very satisfying, and it's one that has a lot of replayability. And so if my collection is a little bit smaller, Marvel Champions is going to be a game that I will continuously play, and also it's one of those games that you do learn and get better at. I thought about Dominion here. It kind of felt like the same genre with a lot of significant replayabilities, but Marvel Champions just kind of knocked it out of the park. Also, it's a cooperative game, which we have not seen, and Dominion was another competitive game. So I wanted to get something in there that was a little bit of a cooperative, and Dominion does not work solo. Marvel Champions does. Warning, this is a money trap, and I think if you buy into Marvel Champions, you're very quickly going to go over that $200 limit because you're going to want to buy some of the expansions, but we'll talk about that later. So we have like the Euro games, we have the solo and the cooperative experience. Next up, I wanted something that was really good at 2 players. Marvel Champions does that really well. Brass works at 2 players. I think it thrives at 3, but I wanted something that was very, very good for 2 players and also a competitive experience, and I landed on 7 Wonders Duel for $28. So $28 for Duel is a really good price for the value it brings to the table. 7 Wonders Duel is a 2-player drafting game that you can knock out games in like 30 to 50 minutes or so, and it just works so very well because it's a head-to-head unique drafting game that is just really satisfying if you're sitting across the table from someone that you play this a lot with. And just for a 2-player game, it works so well. I was trying to get a game that was 2-player only. Mainly, I do a lot of 2-player games myself. Now, when you're building your list, it may not be the same because maybe you're only playing with 4 or 6 players, and 7 Wonders Duel just does not make it into that top 200 for you. But most of my gameplays are at 2-player or solo, honestly, because of the LCGs. But 7 Wonders Duel is kind of that pinnacle, perfect 2-player game for me. There are a couple others that kind of fit within this realm. A couple that come to mind are like Watergate from Capstone, Lost Cities from Cosmos. Lost Cities I was kind of toying with. I really enjoy Lost Cities. I think that 7 Wonders Duel is a little bit meatier of a gameplay than Lost Cities. However, Lost Cities provides a relaxing gameplay, but I didn't have space to put it in, and I settled on Duel for... yeah, just because I wanted to. I was thinking of why I needed to justify Duel over Lost Cities, and I just think Duel is a meatier game, which is kind of what I'm looking for when I'm starting a collection. That leaves me with $42, and I wanted to round out the collection, and $42 does not go a long way in the board game world. Board games are continually getting more and more expensive, and so that can be pretty difficult to try and find a game, but we did find Power Grid for under 40, but we already have that covered. I can't buy 2 copies of Power Grid. That'd be dumb. But I wanted, I guess, to fill out the rest of the collection with some of these games that work really well to open up a game night or close a game night and are more suitable for like a larger group, or I like to call them like catalyst games, the ones that work really well for like conversation starters, or you can sit around and just kind of play and have conversation and be social with people. I love these types of games. I think that they're really great to take places and introduce people to games, and just, it's an activity that you can be doing while also conversing and relating to people. And so I needed some of these in my collection. I was actually able to get 3 for the $41 or the $42 that I had left. The first one is The Crew. The Crew was $11. I don't know if... The Crew for $11 is by far and away my most value played game. Now, I've played the most games of Marvel Champions. However, I've spent way more than $11 on Marvel Champions. But for The Crew, I've probably played 50 plus hours at this point. And I think I got it for 14. So, 30% more. Oh, wow. But The Crew for $11 plays up to 5 players. It's a game that you can just sit around and play for hours. This is a cooperative game, and so it just works really well to introduce people, especially if they are new to board games but have played trick-taking games. I'm from the Midwest, and that's a big part of the culture in the Midwest is trick-taking games. And so having The Crew on this list for $11 was a no-brainer. Also on the list for $10 was Hanabi. This is a newer to me game. Hanabi is a game where you are trying to set off the best fireworks show possible, and you hold cards in your hand, but the cards in your hand you can't see and other people can, and you're trying to give... This is another cooperative game. I do like cooperative games. This is a game where you're trying to give clues to other players around the table so that they can blindly play their cards in the correct order, and so you don't blow up the fireworks show. It's a really good game to get people laughing and just kind of set the stage for what the night can be. At the end of the night, when people's brains are burned, it can be a little bit more difficult to get this out. I like The Crew for the end of the night, and for starting, probably Hanabi for the beginning of the night, because there's a lot of memory that goes into Hanabi, and that can just be a little bit hard, but you can do it, honestly. But for $10, yeah, let's go. That's an insane value. And then I had $21 left. I'm actually going to float $3, and so maybe I get to use the $3 on my next video or something. I don't know. But I'm going to go with Cartographers for $18. This is a roll and write game, which I have found that I enjoy roll and writes way more than I thought I would. Now, this is a revelation that came about 2 years ago. This is not a new revelation for me, but I didn't think I would enjoy them. There's not a ton of player interaction. Now, Cartographers does fix that a little bit. There is a lot of not a lot, but there is player interaction in Cartographers, and I don't know. They're very satisfying. They're relaxing to me. I think that's a good word for it. Roll and writes are relaxing for me, and Cartographers I just think works so very well. It's a polynomio roll and write game where you're mapping the lands of Nalos, I think it is. I don't know. I didn't do as much research on Cartographers as I probably should have for this video. But it's a game where you are putting shapes of different terrain types out on your map, and based on where they are placed, they score differently for different randomized scoring objectives that are dealt at the beginning of the game. And what I really like about the game, for this list in particular, is this game can play infinite number of people, right? So you have, I guess it's limited to the number of sheets you have. So probably about 100. So if I have a group over that has 8 people, I don't have a game that can fit 8 people. So we'd have to break up into 2. Cartographers, you don't have to do that. Cartographers is a game that if you buy another booklet, no, I'm guessing those booklets are more than $3. I was going to say I can use my $3 to get another booklet for Cartographers, but I think those are more. But if you buy more maps, you can have an infinite number of people playing. And so it does kind of fill that void of what happens if I have more than 6 people at my house that want to play games. Cartographers works for that. I can continue talking about Cartographers for a while, but I wanted to talk about some of the games that didn't really make the cut. That'd be The Mind. I felt like The Mind and The Crew, those are pretty synonymous in my mind. The Mind is pretty synonymous with The Mind. Okay, probably better vocabulary could have been used, but anyways. The Mind works pretty well. It's also about the same price. I think The Crew provides a little bit more replayability, which is why I went with The Crew over The Mind. So Clover, Codenames, Green Team Wins, all of these party games work really well, and if I had $10 more, I definitely would get more of a quote party game in there. I love Green Team wins. I think that was around 18. I still don't think I'd swap Green Team for Cartographers just because Cartographers just works so well. Green Team also plays up to like 12. Actually, you can play infinite number with Green Team as well. You just need some more dry erase boards. But a lot of these games, I think this was the hardest genre for me to kind of figure out because there are so many games that are all under $20 and you can just get a lot of value for these games. It was tough, but I am happy with my picks. The Crew, Cartographers, Hanabis. For that last, I'm floating $3, which means that I can go get a... I don't even know. I don't even know what I can spend $3. I'll go get a Coke or something. But yeah, so those are my picks for if I had $200 and I needed to rebuild my entire collection. I'm curious what you think you would buy. It was a really fun exercise. I had a ton of fun with this. I have so much research. I did way more research on this video than I thought I would, and I had a lot more fun than I thought I would building this video. And so if you are interested in doing it, do it and let me know in the comments because I am curious. Or if there's a game in my $200, my new collection that I just started that you would be like, no, never. Let me know. I'm curious because we all have different gaming tastes, and I'm interested to see what people's collections look like if they only had $200 to start back up. So yeah, that's the video. If you enjoyed this content, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way in help promoting the channel, getting it out to new people, and I really appreciate it. Yeah. Anyways, I'm Nelson, and thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next time. Peace.